Southern Music Research Center presents
Premier bonheur du jour, du jour, du jour.
DuJour.
Morning show.
This is Southern Music Research Center, and you're listening to Jim Fahy. You know, it's possible I heard it earlier than this, but I really remember sometime between 85 and 87, like, stuff really hitting for me, because, like, you know, of course we had, like, Raising Hell, Walk This Way was out, but what really, I think, hit me was Salt and Pepper, Push It. That was, like, all over the radio. And Tramp, like Salt and Pepper were like a big deal. I listened to soul music a lot as a kid. That was like my favorite. And so when hip hop was really on the radio, it all made sense to me pretty instantly. Because I remember, of course, everyone's complaint at the time was just a bunch of talking over beats. And it's like, this is like it. It's soul music right here. It's disco and it's soul music. And especially with the samples during that time, it made a lot of sense. So hearing like Amen breaks and James Brown samples, it really made sense to me. And I think probably aside from like hearing like Duran Duran or something as a kid, it was the first music I ever heard that was like, this is mine. Like this is like here right now, and it felt really contemporary. I lost instant interest pretty quick in like, you know, MTV synth pop and stuff. And so once Yo MTV Raps came on too, that was an everyday after school. And so, you know, EPMD, Public Enemy, you know, Eric B. and Rakim, like all those things, Slick Rick, like all that stuff like hit for me. I miss those big breaks, those big drums and hip hop. And so at the time, like that was like a big deal. LL Cool J, for sure, especially Bigger and Deffer, Walk with the Panther. I had a cousin, I'm from Indiana, and so he and his sister would come down and stay with my family most summers, and he always had tapes, and so he would come down and bring stuff to me, and so I got a lot of early knowledge from that. Early Ice-T, like, you know, all that stuff. Favorite hip hop records, the big three for me. Well, Illmatic, Nas, top 5 all time of any record ever. Like that record, short, sweet, DJ Premier, Q-Tip, great production, but really just like that whole record is just about existence. You know, it's such a short record. I mean, that record's like probably less than 40 minutes long, and like there's so much in there. And that record like is just endlessly fascinating to me. I never tire of it. De La, you know, I mean, you could pick any of them, but for me, it's Balloon Mind State, which is an underrated record, and what I love about that one in particular, I think it's some of the most adventurous production. You still got Prince Paul, but it's a record that's really there's a melancholy on that record that I don't think anybody like touches, because they do it and they're still like lyrically it's still so interesting and in their own like loopy way of writing things, but another like just tremendously like deep record. You know, Tribe, always, you know. For me, it's Midnight Marauders. I know everyone Low End Theory, and of course, I get it. I love Midnight Marauders, mainly because award tours, and you get De La on that too. But you know, these days too, the last record I'm just blanking on for this 1 second. I mean, I think in some ways, I think that's the best Tribe record. I mean, it's unbelievable they can be gone for that long and make a record that strong. And again, sad. I appreciate there's not melancholy in hip hop. I think is just sort of like glazed over, but some people really do that feeling justice. Or it's rare that someone does it so poetically, and and but also producers just mean like a really great deal to me. I'm a writer, like as professionally, but as a songwriter too, and I'm a lyrics person anytime, which of course is another reason why hip hop really hit me early on. But the texture as I've gotten older, like the producers really make a big difference to me. It comes back to not just like beats, but like the textures of those records, which the thing is, like anything else, as we all go more digital, like that gets really lost. And so introducing by DJ Shadow, that's a record that still I find endlessly fascinating, especially like in headphones. Like I go back to that record a whole lot. Again, like, Premier, I mean, RZA, and RZA is just so incredible what he did with so little, but like, he all that warts and all production, like super crackly. And I think from that you get like, shout out Portishead, Jeff Barrow. I mean, like again, like, with music that I like to make, even when I make, when I make beats and things, like I still want that. If I can't find a sample that I want, it's like that whole idea of like I want to make something sound like it's old and fucked up. Like I want that in there because like that texture, and that it's never has to be perfect, never quantized, because that's where the funk is. And you still think about somebody that's really like beat matching, like on turntables. It's never perfect, but the funk is there. It's insistent. The rhythm just suggests itself. It doesn't, I like that in any kind of music. The flaws are part of what makes it happen. It just gives it, it almost, it still keeps things really like dreamlike and crazy. Bomb Squad, always, Public Enemy. I mean, punk is those records. And you think about, you're taking like Hank Shockley, like taking like, crazy, again, Amen Break, and then just like, let's just play a sped up saxophone squeal for like 5 minutes nonstop, and to really make that like wall of sound. I mean, it's really not a big leap to be like, in 1988, you could be listening to Public Enemy and like Daydream Nation, my Sonic Youth. It's like that visceral, that like huge, and it was such a big, like bold gesture. There's still guys, and Dilla, always, and Madlib. I kind of discovered them both about the same time, and my first Madlib, my first Madlib record was Shades of Blue, when he was going through the Blue Note catalog, and that was the first time I think I ever heard a guy that was like, not sampling jazz records, but instead of just like, taking a song and just like putting like a beat on it. It was like this guy understood the motion. Again, he had like multi-tracks, and so he was able to still get like the texture of like those records. And that was the first time I ever thought I heard somebody like remixing jazz that also like understood like the way it moved. And so once I heard that, and then started to hear like the Beat Conductor records and everything else that he was doing, it was really like, that guy's huge. And of course Dilla, what can you say? I mean, again, somebody that like could find the weirdest samples, but again, was never concerned about making things perfect. He was into the texture of the records and finding those like little bits of things. And he could be commercial. I mean, I love B by Common. I think that's just like such a great record, and he's like all over that. And then there's a lot of Kanye beats on that. I think that's still when Kanye was still trying to be like up and coming, like Dilla. And, no need to comment any further on that, but that influence was like so huge. And so when they came together too, like J-Lib, like the Champion Sound record, like that's another one of my favorite hip hop records like ever, because them like on each other's beats and just like, and it's just a funny record. It's so good. Those are the guys I like the most. Edan, Beauty and the Beat. Like that's a record that underrated. Not a lot of people know him. He's sort of a mysterious, like Boston cat, I think. I don't know. But again, a record that like clearly he's into like, Cool Keith and like, just weird warp samples, but fuzzy. Like you really hear like, the record. You just hear a turntable just like driven, and like I like guys that want to go that far with it. I appreciate a lot of other modern guys, more like pop guys, but for me it was always like, I guess with the exception of Madlib, like, I'm definitely one of those New York guys. It's New York in the 80s and 90s. I'm definitely one of those boom bap guys. That those records hit really hard for me. Hear Liquid Swords forever, hear Illmatic forever. Like, I love that production, just slams, and like that's something I really miss. Less lean, more fuzz. Hip hop in my daily life. This is a tough question because I feel like my listening habits lately are just so different than they used to be with a lot of things. I find myself leaning more on stalwart kind of records with me, which is something I swore I'd never do. And like, but at the same time, it's impossible not to think about how it's not in my life. It's like music that's been like a part. I mean, as much as rock music ever was or anything. Again, like I grew up like not really a rock kid. My parents didn't have a particularly hip record collection, so what mattered to me, like growing up, again, was like, I like to listen to oldies on the radio and like soul music, and that was a big deal, especially like Stax, like that Southern soul music was such a big deal to me. And again, like that kind of rhythm, that kind of beat, like again, hip hop made total sense to me, and so like those sounds are just a part of me. But also as like a lifestyle in terms of like, I mean, just a lifestyle, but but the way of thinking about music, the way of like, oh man, that would be a cool sample, or what if I could take something that I'm working on originally, be like, I want to make, again, the whole idea of making it sound old and giving it kind of like a groove. Like, dance music in general matters to me. I think dancing is really important. It's an important part of our expression. It's an important way to enjoy yourself. I hate going to any show where people don't dance and just stand there. It's just death. And so I think to think about groove and just deconstruction. Again, it's such an amazing art form of like, this is music that came from like people wanting to party to like making a band happen, taking like limited technology and making like the biggest sound about it, and that's how you innovate. It's just pure scrappy desire. For like a really visceral effect, not only like the sonic but it had a purpose to get people to dance, and then they got people to talk about, to rhyme, to talk about where they came from. Nothing drives me crazier than when people talk about any MC and be like, oh, he's like so smart. Like, no, you do that. You get on a mic and come up with those words, especially on the spot, and put that stuff together, your life, or to be funny or anything. Like, you do that. Of course, these are smart, and that's just, that music has driven so much of our life and culture. It's like, it's everywhere. It's amazing that people even like separate genres at all right now. But that's what I love about it. I like the idea that we can take anything and make it joyous, or make it scary, or make it just passionate. And that drive to make music like that, to take anything and make something new with it, is like inspiring, and should be inspiring to people always, especially if you come from like a punk rock background. It's ultimate DIY right there. And take anything and really change it. That's why, especially as people got, once the MPC came, and again, like back to De La too, like just take anything and slam it all together. It's sad for as much technology we have now, like those rights issues are such a big deal that we'll never get a record like Paul's Boutique again. We'll never get a record like 3 Feet High and Rising, not in a commercial way. You can't commercially make those records anymore. And these probably same that vote Republican are like squashing innovation, like right there, by not letting people just continue to change music, create a genre of music and a lifestyle that lots of people have benefited from, and that utilizes a technology that anybody can get, that kids can now just like, there's like kids out there that just can make a record on their phone and make something just amazing. It's all there. It just really takes that push and that drive to like make something, the desire to want to make something and get it out, and I think hip hop really gives us that as much as punk or anything else ever has. That there'll always be that desire and that need for like self-expression I think hip hop really embodies that. And look how it's changed the world. It's changed the world forever.